Hello and a very good evening to everyone. My name is Vijay and I'm your teacher for this entire course. I would be taking you through all the sessions as such, and we have all gathered here for the inaugural session for this course on patenting of NDDS and 55B2 specialty products. This course is like by IPA, Indian Pharmaceutical Association, Mara State Branch, in collaboration with IPA-MSB, Bombay College of Pharmacy, and Pharma Literati. I'm representing here Pharma Literati. And so for the inaugural session, for the first session today, on behalf of IPA-MSB, Bombay College of Pharmacy, and Pharma Literati, I welcome everyone for this particular session. So some before we actually move on, a request to everyone to keep yourself on mute mode and do not start your video as such, at least as long as the inaugural session is going on. Thereafter, after the inaugural, we will actually start with the first session today. And for this, on this occasion, we have two of the esteemed faculty members from Bombay College of Pharmacy as such for the inaugural of this particular course. We have with us to start with, we have with us Dr. Krishnapriya Mohanraj. She's the professor and head at Department of Pharmaceutical Analysis. She's the course convener for this particular course, and she has been a part of this team, and she has been instrumental to see the day of light for this particular course as such. PhD in technology from ICT in 1998, and she has been long associated with the research as well as lots of other activities with Bombay College of Pharmacy as such. And I request Dr. Krishnapriya ma'am to welcome everyone and have her speech on this occasion. Over to you, Dr. Krishnapriya ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay Shipuje. And it's my honor and pleasure to welcome the dignitaries as well as all the participants. We are supposed to have more than 50 participants. I have 40 here in the list. And each one of you have taken a right decision in joining for this course. It's always given that we are always learning. So even though I'm a teacher, I say that while teaching, I learn the most. And even though we are all here from different branches, okay, different streams, because if you look at the participants, we have participants from the academics, that is both students as well as faculty. We have participants from the industry, and each one of us who has come here to join this particular program has come to learn something. So, to kindle the joy of learning in us. We are very proud at Bombay College of Pharmacy that this is the second course, that certificate course, online certificate course that we have started after Bombay College of Pharmacy got its autonomous status in 2019 from the University Grants Commission. And the first course is a 96-hour data analytics in healthcare course conducted along with Navigo Analytics. And this is the second course. We've been working on this course for almost a year. I think first we were planning that we would start this course in February. And I think it was that in this academic year that we should have started. And just before the auspicious Ganesh Chaturthi on a Tuesday, we are starting this course. And I welcome all of you to the BCP family. Now, you're all students of Bombay College of Pharmacy, and you will be alumni of Bombay College of Pharmacy after this course. And in this first course, see, everything, when you start it for the first time, no, we keep learning. So while the other course, now we are in the fourth certificate, fourth batch. So you are the first batch, the flag bearers, the torch bearers, who is going to take this course to greater heights. So you are the ones, like we start with you, and you'll always be very, very dear to the heart batch, because you're the first batch. So with these words, I will request Professor Krishna Iyer, our esteemed principal, Bombay College of Pharmacy, to carry on with the legacy that is Bombay College of Pharmacy.
Good afternoon, everyone, or I should say good evening, everyone. And once again, I welcome all the dignitaries and all the students who are going to take part in this course. For those who are not familiar with Bombay College of Pharmacy, we are about 65 years old now. We started around 1957 in a small way as a college offering what is called as a certificate course for practicing pharmacy, which is a little less than a diploma course. And then from that point, we introduced B.Pharm, M.Pharm, and now we have PhD. So now we have a B.Pharm program with an intake of 100 students. We have an M.Pharm program with specialization in 5 disciplines with a total intake of about 55. And at any time, we have about 30 to 35 PhD students actively pursuing their PhD. Almost all our faculty are PhD holders or are actually enrolled for a PhD, and generally speaking, in our very own college. Okay, so we have a rich legacy of meritorious students who have passed out from BCP. And if you look around, both in the Indian industry, Indian academic institutions, as well as the global industry, many of the students who have had their roots at Bombay College of Pharmacy now occupy decision-making positions in many of the institutions and corporate worlds. So you are a part of a family which has got a very rich tradition, and I'm sure that you will realize how nice this family is as you go through this course for the next 2 months or so. Okay. As Dr. Krishnapriya said, by enrolling in this certificate course, you have now become part of the BCP family and you will be considered as BCP alumni. Okay, so with those few words and the realization that BCP has always been ranked in the top 25 in the national rankings, and we have a very unique distinction. We have one of the strongest industry institute partnerships. In fact, we have been awarded so many times that after a while we have been told that we are a mentor for other colleges. And also we got a very interesting award, which is a jury mention for providing one of the best atmospheres for research and industrial collaboration. Okay, so there's a rich legacy which BCP offers you. And being the first batch, as Krishnapriya madam said, that you'll always be this first child of this certificate course. But the good thing about being the first batch is you will be taught everything. In fact, more than what is necessary. It is only when the second and third batches come that we try to prune and fine tune. But you will get everything without any, in a sense, holding back because you are the first batch. And you are the ones who are going to be our word of mouth advertisers for the other students who will enroll a little later. So with that, and being under this guidance of the esteemed teachers of this course, hand it over to the organizer again. Sir, please take over. And I wish all of you happy learning and enjoyable learning, and make sure that these things that you learn will help you down the road in your career and in your research. Thank you very much.
Thank
Vijay
you.
sir?
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Krishna, yes, sir, and for those lively words, I would say. And as you mentioned, we would also ensure that this particular course is actually something which would give more output for the students, as well as they would enjoy this course. We would try our best, sir. And thank you so much for your guidance, taking out time, Krishna, yes, sir, as well as Krishna Priya ma'am, for addressing this inaugural session. And I think Krishna Priya ma'am mentioned, we have a diverse participants coming for this particular course. We have got people from industry who are from typically from the formulation departments or the formulation sciences, as well as we have participants from the intellectual property rights department. We have some faculty members who are also involved directly into the research, the formulation research or pharma research. Basically, we also have lots of students who are researchers. They are doing their PhD, as well as we have some students who are doing pursuing their masters as well. So it's a diverse, I would say, kind of participants that we have got. We also got some students who have just finished their UG undergraduation, and they are looking forward for actually their careers either into intellectual property rights or pharmaceutical research. The intent of this particular course actually has been that to provide you an idea or understanding about the development of 5,5B2 product or specialty product, as well as the patenting aspects related to that. What we have seen in last few years actually has been typically Indian pharma industry has been switching the gears and actually moving forward to the specialty product or the so-called novel drug delivery system related product. We have been switching from the typical generic kind of industry to specialty products, and of course drug discovery has been a part of it. But then on a risk benefit analysis, the industry has been actually looking forward to NDDS or 5,5B2 products. And considering these things, we thought to have a course which would give us an idea about the development of 5,5B2 products, not from a regulatory perspective, but typically from a market perspective, as in what kind of products need to be selected for 5,5B2 development or NDDS novel drug delivery system. How can it be patented as well, because patent is something which has been really crucial when we think of actually having any development. When we think of research activities at Bombay College of Pharmacy or many of the leading institutions in India, what we have seen as a trend, and this is my personal opinion as a patent agent, we have seen a lot of patent filings coming up from the academic institutions. Like as we always say, initially it's all about the numbers, the quantity of the number of patent filings and all. And thereafter, what we have realized, there are some really good technologies or some good products that are under development, but many a times, unfortunately, due to lack of IP protection, these products don't get the real value that is associated with those products. As well as we have also realized that there are lots of technologies which can be really commercialized well as well from the academic point of view. But then there is always a kind of a I would say mismatch between three things. One is a research, the second is a legal acumen, and the third is actually the market potential or the business potential. And if you look at the three separate modules of this particular course, we have tried to combine all these three things together. In the first module, we would be having more focus on the legal or the IPR perspective, how actually you can protect your invention or research. So that is important as a researcher or as an academician as well. In the second module, if you see, we are more focusing on the development part of 505(b)(2) products or novel drug delivery system. For in today's session, of course, for those who are new to the terms of 505(b)(2) or NDDS, we are going to discuss that as well today. And in the third module, if you see, it is more about commercialization. It is more about licensing. It is also more about I would say in how we can actually take our products to the market, maybe through a startup, maybe through an incubator, or maybe through a company as such. Because we know that as an academician or as an industry as well, many a times we have got really good research, but we may not have that capability to commercialize that invention. How it can be done, what are those factors which need to be considered when we think about actually having those products. And I say our focus for the entire course would be actually, as I said, would be on the novel drug delivery system, as well as the 505(b)(2) products as such. So that this would be, as I said, is a course which would give you a broader perspective, not only from a patenting point of view, but also from typically from how to select those right candidates as well in your when you are working. So from the ideation stage, when we are actually putting some hypothesis, or when we are actually preparing ourselves for our thesis, we are choosing the thesis topic, or we are choosing one product for development in pharmaceutical R&D. At that point of time, what should be those factors which we need to consider in? Because as I mentioned, usually we always think about science as a scientist, but let me tell you, the research work that we do in our lab or in our R&D, until and unless it is commercialized, it reaches the end users, it may not actually have got a real potential, or I would say its significance. Basically, whatever we are doing in the research lab need to be commercialized, and that is actually the real benefit coming out of that particular research as such. So with this brief, we are actually starting with our first session today. We have some instructions for the participants as well. We would have, of course, we have already created a WhatsApp group, and all the instructions would be provided through that particular group itself for all the participants. Beyond that, we would, after every session, we would have a small quiz along with the attendance, which we would provide you a Google form through which you need to submit as such. That form would be available till midnight on the day when we have the sessions as such. Beyond that, for each of the session, we would be providing you the video recordings if you are not in a position to attend the session. These video recordings would be through a private link of a YouTube channel, so you can only log in through the Gmail address that you have provided, and through that only, with that Gmail only, you would be in a position to access that video for a limited period of time only. It won't be permanent as such, and I think the schedule has already been shared with you. We would have the sessions on every Tuesday and Thursday between 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We are also trying to arrange some sessions, because we have got some faculties who may not be available during these times. So we would be arranging some sessions over either weekends or on the holidays, so that each one of us gets benefited through their expertise as well. We have got faculties who are from industries, as well as the law firms, as well as those who have been working not only in the patent domain, but also into the product portfolio domain, pharmaceutical product portfolio domain. And this is especially for the second module which I mentioned, which is more about the development product, identifying the right candidate or right kind of actually I would say project, basically, that also we have got. At the end, we would have, so it's a continuous assessment daily, as well as at the end we would have a examination as well, which would be again an online examination. which would be multiple choice online examination based on the entire syllabus content as such. We also have got an assignment after first module is finished. After first module is finished, each one of you would be getting an opportunity to present that assignment either live through this particular platform, or through a video which you need to submit to us basically through a particular link that we would provide to you. For all your inquiries or queries as such, we are opening the WhatsApp group for chat to everyone from tomorrow, and you can ask those queries right there. For any technical queries or as well, you can write the queries in the WhatsApp group as such. For the sessions, as we move ahead with different sessions on each day, of course we would have the question answer session as well at the end of each of the session. In between, you can also ask the questions through the chat box. At the end of the session, we would be providing each one of you an opportunity to speak as well as far as the questions are concerned. But it is highly recommended that the questions are put in the chat box, or else you are in a position to speak at the end of the session, so that the continuity of the session actually continues as such. So let us actually start with our first session for the day.
I would just like you to tell, sir, if you can mention to them the importance of attendance, because attendance also carries marks here in our sessions. And even though you are able to view the videos, then you don't get your attendance marks. And second point is, though you have a final exam, it is always a continuous assessment, and this continuous assessment is also recorded. So I would advise all of you, let's take this as a learning experience, that each and every session that we are going to attend.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We are attentive. We participate in the quiz, and of course there can be emergencies. You are not able to attend a particular thing, and you can definitely watch the videos. But then this part I felt that the students should also know. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am, for informing this. And as ma'am rightly mentioned, attendance is mandatory, as well as there are some marks given to the attendance as well in the entire course curriculum as such. For every session, the attendance would be actually monitored. Okay, now so let us start with our first session for the day for this particular course. Okay, thank you. So hopefully my screen is visible to everyone, and we are starting with this session, the first session. And so as I mentioned, we would have 3 separate modules. The first module more onto the patenting part, the second module onto the NDDS, novel drug delivery system, and 505(b)(2) requirements answer. Typically 505(b)(2) is a term which has been used for the NDAs, specialty products, only in the US market. We would actually see what are those different products which are covered under 505(b)(2) as well in the module 2. And lastly, we would be actually discussing about the commercialization aspect as well. For those who are of course, I know many of the participants, and we have interacted earlier as well. And so I'm going to take your first session for the day for this particular course, which is more patentability requirements. Under what conditions you get a patent, especially in the context of novel drug delivery system products or the specialty or the 505(b)(2) products. When we think of, as I said, this term is specifically used in US. When we think of 505(b)(2) products, the different product categories that are approved basically in US, which are new combinations, let's say new dosage forms, the new dosing regimens for a particular drug. Now everyone understands what it means by new combinations, basically new dosage forms as well. New dosing regimen is something which I would say, wherein you have, let's say, a product which is approved, which has a dosing regimen of 3 times a day, or even there is a molecule I remember, which has got a dosing regimen of 3 times a day, 3 capsules every time. So totally 9 capsules you have to consume. For that product, when you are actually changing that dosing regimen, that point of time, you have that opportunity to go as a specialty product or 505(b)(2) product in US FDA. 505(b)(2) is actually a section number under which you apply for US FDA for approval of your product. So traditionally what we have seen in pharma research is, on one side we have the drug discovery, wherein which is more of, I would say, going through that chemistry, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and thereafter you would be actually getting your molecule approved. This, as we know, is a really high risk game, and it involves a lot of cost. The second part, wherein the other side of this pharma research basically is the generic part. And when we speak about the generic specifically, that point of time, these are low cost products, and most, to be honest, most of the Indian companies are the generic companies. They have not, there are very few companies actually which are into drug discovery part. Now these are the traditional, I would say, two separate category of the companies that globally the pharma industry has got. But then, when we speak about 505(b)(2) product or specialty products, it lies in between the drug discovery and the generics. So we have lots of categories, like as I said, prodrugs, maybe something which is a salt change in case of a molecule. In few products you have this drug device combinations. Beyond that, we also have got orphan drugs. Orphan drugs are those drugs which are approved for an indication which is more for, I would say, very so the population which is affected by that particular disease is really very less answer. Again, this is a term coming from the US. Orphan drug is a common term actually globally now. There is also a concept called Desi drugs, drug efficacy study implementation drugs. Desi drugs are those which are approved long back basically, which are there in market before we had this formal approval process of NDA and ANDA. And but then they are like reinventing those drugs and be getting launched in US basically, like, that's what are called as Desi drugs. And if you just Google out Desi drugs, you would get a lot of drugs which have been traditionally used, but they were never approved by US FDA. So there is a scheme under which you can actually get those products approved as well. Finally, a very upcoming field, and of course many of the pharmacologists or people even from pharmaceutics are working on, is a new indication. Typically what we call as a drug repurposing. Take a old drug and try to come up with, maybe through some lateral thinking, or maybe like, maybe a reversal, or just try to understand how it works and come up with a new indication for that particular drug as such. Now, when we think of all these activities coming under specialty products, we would realize that all these things may not require a complete clinical study. And that's what is actually a difference between a drug discovery, a new drug, a 505(b)(2) product, and a 505(j), which is ANDA product basically. Now, typically when we compare the 505(b)(1) route, which is a NDA route, 505(b)(2), which at times is called as a supplementary NDA, like so branded generics भी जिसे हम बोलते हैं, like and finally you have the ANDA route. Now if you compare these, you would understand that the entire clinical set of studies are required in the NCE, new chemical entity. When a drug gets discovered, you need to conduct the entire clinical set of studies basically. And if you compare it with 55J, wherein we are not conducting any clinical study, rather what we are doing, a typical generic industry is doing, is a bioequivalence study. Right now, if we think of 55B2 now, let us think of a product, let us say, wherein we are actually doing a drug repurposing, coming up, let's say with a new indication for the old drug. In that case, we would understand that we may not need to conduct the phase 1, the safety and efficacy studies, as well as in few cases even phase 2 studies may not be required. So the difference between our NCE and a 55B2 product, or that's what I'm calling as a specialty product basically, is that you would have only a partial clinical studies that would be required. And if you look at the way the Indian pharma industry or most of the global generic pharmas are moving ahead, you would understand that most of them are focusing more into this domain. Reason being, 55J ANDA of course provides you a lot of opportunities as such, but it's also overcrowded now. And unfortunately, many of the generic companies can't afford the 55B1 or the drug discovery part. So the middle way, I would say risk is higher compared to ANDA, but much lesser compared to NCE. And that's what these companies are actually looking into. But then what we would also try to understand here is also that, like, as I mentioned, we have got lots of things which can be covered under 55B2, but for this course, our focus would be novel drug delivery systems only. And that's what I have highlighted, new dosage form. Basically, in case of 55B2 products, it may be a new dosage form as well, and therein would be our focus. So if we go back to the earlier slide, the second column, if you see the new combos, the new dosage form, the new dosing regimen as well. And if you understand all this, this is just not a typical formulation science. You need some understanding of pharmacokinetics, you need some understanding of pharmacology, as well as chemistry as well. If you look at the salt change or prodrugs, even in few cases, I would say the derivatives or other kind of molecules. Recently, there was a I think few years back, there was a molecule which was approved, which was a first deuterated molecule approved actually, and that actually changed the entire landscape of looking at the new chemical entities as well. Now, what happens when we think of specialty product or 55B2 products is that we are trying to use, I would say, that less comparatively more risk compared to ANDA, but then thereafter you also have lot of advantages as well for your products once you market it or once you launch it, typically from a business point of view. Now, but when we say this, and when we again focus on the new dosage forms related 55B2 products only, the second column, new combos, new dosage forms, or new dosing regimens as well. So typical examples would be making an IR to ER, making a combination, or maybe making an IR to ODT, change in dosage form. All those kind of products we would be focusing on throughout our journey of this particular course as well, as such. Now, when we say new dosage form, in case of ANDA, you cannot change the dosage form of the RLD or what we call as the brand basically. But in case of 55B2 product, you are allowed to do that. So for example, there is a drug which is approved as a tablet, you can convert it into a solution. Of course, there are lots of other factors that are considered as well at that point of time. But when scientists are working on that, they actually don't look into the business aspect of that, because at the end of the day, if you are developing a good product, it should fetch some business to the company as well. Eventually when we think of that, the most significant part has been IP as well, patent protection. uh, there are few products wherein the technology was really very nice. 55B2 product developed was also really very nice. IR got converted to ER. Normal, like, when we think of any molecules, we think of a novel drug delivery system. That point of time, IR to ER conversion, wonderful product. You got an upper hand over the others as such, because you are the first one to do that. But unfortunately, the patent protection was very improper because of lack of proper drafting of the patent, as well as the legal protection that was given to that product was really very less. And eventually, although you have got a great invention, you are killing your invention because of either the lack of IP knowledge, or lack of the business aspect related to that. And I'll typically tell you, when we think of novel drug delivery systems, of course we have got lots of formulation approaches, like for example for solubility enhancement, or like, if we are working on, let's say, BCS class 4 kind of drugs, therein we have seen lots of examples wherein we are using these technologies to come up with a specialty product as well. And then there are scientists who are working on platform technologies. When I say platform technologies, one of the I would say observation that I have got for platform technologies is, if I'm working on a platform technology and I have to choose a drug candidate for that, to check whether that technology works or not, I usually go and pick an old molecule and just check it. Now, that makes sense actually, like, because of the availability of that molecule, easy accessibility of that molecule as such. But from an IP perspective, from a patent perspective, I have a reason, very strong reason, you shouldn't select an old drug if you're working for a platform technology. What is that reason? We are going to discuss in the next slide. But when we think of NDDS for 55B2, we have got platform technologies, we have got formulation approaches, as well as targeted drug delivery systems for the products, let's say in the onco domain or specific domain as such, wherein we need to we need to develop those products in a very different way compared to 505B1, as in the way the innovator, the RLD, the brand has developed the product. Beyond that, we can actually come up with something. And this is real research that is coming up in the pharmaceutical industry as well. If you look at the trends in the pharmaceutical industry, especially the Indian pharmaceutical industry, maybe 20 years back, like, maybe 2000, 2001, that point of time, having an ANDA filed was a great thing. Thereafter, maybe around 2005 or 6, there was a time wherein actually filing an para 4 ANDA was something which was considered a great thing. And come 2010, maybe winning that litigation, getting that 180 days exclusivity was something which was very important. We are speaking about the US market. Okay. Now, come 2015, what we have seen, 2015, 2016, last 5 years, normal oral tablet product, and you're filing as a generic, at times there are 25 players, believe me, 25 players on day one filing that ANDA. So the development process has been comparatively really very easy because of the way the industry has actually grown and the kind of technical expertise that has been actually available. But then now in last 4 or 5 years, what you would see is, like, there has been immense interest into these middle level products, which are 55B2 product or specialty products, and how this is being done and how is it patented. That's what the entire I would say the intent of this particular course is. But now when we know what is, I would say, 55B2 or a specialty product, or I would say the typically in the NDDS, novel drug delivery system, of the first module's focus is on the patent perspective as such. When I said there are three important things for a formulation scientist or a researcher when we think of developing any project, taking any project in your hands. If you are a formulation scientist working in a research lab, that point of time you have got that expertise into formulation development. Based on your expertise or technical skills, you are always in a position to develop a good product basically. But for a product to be marketed, there are three essential things, and that's what the course teaches you about. The formulation development, which you already have got an expertise, and most of us who are researchers or master students, even for that sake, who are working for a drug delivery technology related project, you would understand it very easily. The second aspect is about patenting, or rather the second aspect is about market potential. And if you have, because eventually, as I said, your development involves some cost, and that cost need to be recovered. That can be done only through market. And for that, I think patenting is one of those things which, so if you understand all these three domains, then probably we would be in a position to kind of successfully launch this particular product, which would be in that domain of and novel drug delivery system as such. And when I say not only development but launching of that product, of course we would need the help of regulatory people as well for filing of those products as such. But then the knowledge of these three things, and that's where I think as an organization as well, we have been involved into patenting aspects, as well as we have been involved into identifying market potential for the drug, market intelligence or business intelligence as such, which made us to come up with this particular course as such. Now, when we think of patentability, first thing, important thing, when does the patent get granted? And when I say that, most of us know the requirements that are novelty, inventive step, and industrial applicability. For I remember when I was recruited for the first time in a kind of first week of my job, my boss had told me one thing, that in formulation, or I would say in the typically the NDDS domain, everything is patentable, but then there are barriers for that. And what are those barriers? We'll see with some examples as well for the 5,5B2 products. Now, the second requirement, as I said, first requirement, novelty. Everyone understands what does it mean by novelty basically, which is something new. And when I say something new, most of us are experts in determining whether it's a new or not, because what we try to do, and most of the I would say thesis, when we decide on a thesis or when we decide on a project basically, that point of time we try to get a kind of a literature survey done, and we try to evaluate whether my invention is new or not. And if it is new, most of the times the scientists are correct. When they tell us my invention is novel, that point of time the invention is really novel as such. And what is but the secondary criteria, and this is where you may need some expertise from a legal domain as well, from someone who understand what is inventive step basically. And this is the secondary criteria, also called as non-obviousness. When we think of non-obviousness or inventive step in typically from a formulation perspective, let me give you an example so that it clears our doubts about the difference between a novelty and non-obviousness. Most of the people get confused between these two. Now, non-obviousness or having an inventive step means unpredictability of the art. Now, what do you mean by unpredictability or predictability of the art? Let us presume a case wherein the drug which is known, let us say we have discovered pantoprazole for the first time. We have discovered pantoprazole for the first time, and omeprazole is already there in the market. or it has already been approved as well. Now, omeprazole is available as a delayed release dosage form. This is one typical example I tell in most of the sessions because it's very easy to understand. Omeprazole is available as a delayed release dosage form. I have got a new drug which is a pantoprazole. Now, if I prepare delayed release dosage form for pantoprazole, it would be novel because pantoprazole was never tried into a delayed release dosage form. But so it is novel for sure. But now the second question is, and that's where we would be getting into the examination mode, for a patent basically is that we would be getting a rejection based on inventive step. And it would be like, if omeprazole can be formulated into a delayed release dosage form, it is pretty obvious, or it is pretty predictable that the pantoprazole can also be formulated into delayed release dosage form. Now, what as an examiner, as an agent, or as a scientist, we would try to convince the examiner that, okay, omeprazole and pantoprazole are separate drugs. They are not the same, basically. Their structure is different. And that's the reason if omeprazole is available into delayed release dosage form, it won't be predictable to come up with a delayed release dosage form of pantoprazole. But then the examiner has got an argument. Okay, structurally they are different, is absolutely fine, but both of them belong to the class benzimidazoles. If your pantoprazole is from benzimidazole, and the one which is available, omeprazole is also benzimidazole, one benzimidazole available in the delayed release dosage form would also make it obvious for other benzimidazole getting developed into actually a delayed release dosage form. That way it would be pretty obvious. Now, how to overcome that, we are also going to see at the end of this particular session. But now if we look at formulation development, that point of time, inventive step plays a really crucial role. Before telling that, let me tell you about the third requirement, which is the industrial applicability. And for most of the products, pharma products, it is not an issue. So it has some utility basically because they are developed by the industry. Okay. Now, coming back to the inventive step criteria for the formulation development, when we think of a technology, a platform technology being developed in the lab or R&D, that point of time, novelty is there, and to prove that non-obviousness as well would be comparatively easy as such, because it's a platform technology basically. But the bigger problem when you put a platform technology in the claim is that whatever the number of examples you have worked on. So for example, I come up with a bilayer technology, basically bilayer tableting technology. Let us presume it's coming for the first time. What I try to claim is a bilayer tableting technology wherein one layer contains one active ingredient, the second layer contains second active ingredient, and they are formulated in a single dosage form. And so now for that platform technology, I may have hundreds of examples, which may be actually this technology can be used into. But when you actually go for a prosecution, when you file an application, when you have an examination report, that point of time, Okay, I got a question here from Sarvan. What is a platform technology basically? So platform technology is something basically, Sarvanan, which is I would say not drug specific. It is a technology. Let us say a solid dispersion technology as a or co-crystallization technology as a technology to enhance the solubility of a drug. It can be used for a variety of drugs, right? So it's a technology basically, and that's what we call as a platform technology, which can be applicable to so many drugs. Microparticle technology, or any specific technology that you are using for the development of formulation. Okay, I think that clears your answer, Sarvana. Okay, so when we think of platform technology and when we file an application for a platform technology, that point of time, as I said, for bilayer technology, I have got so many examples. What I do is I work on few products. I use that technology for two drugs. One is a combination of diclofenac and misoprostol, and second is let us say a combination of sitagliptin and metformin. When I go for filing of a patent for a platform technology, the controller would limit your claim with those drugs only. Many a times what we have observed is whatever examples we are showing in the specification or in the patent, for those only the controller or the examiner is willing to grant the patent as such, although we know that the technology itself is new and it can be applicable to, let's say, hundreds of combinations. Now, this is the real answer for those who are working on platform technology, that you shouldn't work on old drugs. Try to come up with work. If you are having a platform technology, work on newer drugs, because if at all the scope of your invention is restricted to the drugs, for example, if I'm working on a drug which is really old for that in that particular category, at that point of time, what would happen is my business for that particular product may be really very less coming out of it, although that technology can be actually used. I think there is someone who has raised hand. Maybe Apurva, if you have any questions, can you unmute and ask the question or put it in the chat box? Okay, no, I think it's by mistake then. Yeah. Now, when we think of platform technologies, if we work on a particular old drug, and if that molecule doesn't have the market potential as of now, because of accessibility we chose that drug, remember. But then when we think of patentability point of view, you've got a great technology, but unfortunately the examples that you used are old drugs. Let me tell you, you are killing that technology. I'm speaking more from the business perspective. Okay, now, and that's our focus has been for this particular course, more about business, more about commercialization of your technology, basically, right? May be coming from academics, may be coming from the research centers or the research development centers, basically. That's the reason for, if you're working on a platform technology, I'm not saying that work on a drug which is approved, let's say in 2020 or 21, but don't work on something which is age old, 40 or 50-year-old molecule, basically, and work somewhere in between, at least for those molecules which have got still some potential as far as the market is concerned. Okay, that way we can actually look into this. So for inventive step, for the technologies, platform technologies, we have it's maybe easier to prove, but because of, as I said, there is a kind of resistance to grant platform technologies, and that the scope of those platform technologies is very restricted to the drugs or the examples that you are actually using. Now, this is one way to look at inventive step from the a novel drug delivery system point of view. The other way to look at it is you are using a old technology and you actually have a product which is new. You're using an old technology for a product, exactly the same case. omeprazole and pantoprazole, or for example, working on anagliptin or allogliptin, and the already available molecule is sitagliptin. Sitagliptin is combined with metformin already. It would be pretty obvious that allogliptin or anagliptin or vildagliptin can be combined with metformin, basically getting invention protected there. So for older technologies and newer drug, inventive step provides a lot of challenges as such. So getting that patent, see, one important thing about patenting when we speak about is that what is that protection that is afforded, and not whether you have got a protection or not. It's never about yes or no. आपको patent मिला है कि नहीं is not something which is going to determine the value of the product or the commercialization. What is that protection? And if it's a new drug with some old technologies, maybe the kind of protection because of inventive step you would get would be really very less actually. So these are global criterias, novelties. I mean, you go to any countries, any country basically, be it US, Europe, Japan, Canada, Australia, India, you would have to satisfy these criteria of novelty, inventive step, and industrial applicability. Novelty, as I said, for a formulation scientist, when you are doing your literature survey, as a researcher, when you are doing your literature survey, that point of time, novelty is in most of the cases is there, but we need to also look into that inventive step criteria if we really are looking forward to getting it patented as well as commercialized as well. Now, but when we think of India specifically, because many people ask me actually, why do we need to discuss this particular slide when we are speaking about the NDDS or 505(b)(2), which is more US centric. But having a protection even in India for your invention is important. Otherwise, there may be a lot of competition coming from the Indian players as well. And to be honest, if your patent gets granted in India, let me tell you, it is very much possible that you can get that patent granted in other jurisdictions as well, because of the stringency of the criteria that we have got. Like, for example, the ones which are highlighted, if you see the section 3D, the section 3E, and section 3I, and these are the most important as far as your specialty products are concerned. Under section 3D, a new form of a known substance, may it be a polymorph, a derivative, a deuterated molecule for that sake, or you have anything which is a ester, a stereoisomer, those are not patentable under section 3D of India unless there is an enhancement of therapeutic efficacy. Now, what do you mean by enhancement of therapeutic efficacy? So to be honest, if you have a new polymorphic form of a known drug and there is a change in therapeutic efficacy, enhancement, enhancement of in therapeutic efficacy, then only you can get patent granted in India. We have got a wonderful comment from Mukesh Singh. Another perspective: old drugs will have more clinical data than new molecules. Metformin will have more clinical data than gliptins. Using old safer drugs, using the new technology, old safer drugs. I understand, Mukesh, what you are, where you are coming from. From a development perspective, you work on old drugs, that is absolutely fine. But if you really want to protect your technology, I would say legally, I would prefer working on a new molecule, because as you rightly mentioned, a lot of data is available. From my perspective, that lot of data is lot of prior art created for me, and I may not get actually that granted as well. And as well as I already told you, Mukesh, when we work on the old molecule, let's say you have got a great technology, and then you're working on an old molecule, it may have lesser business coming out of it, and that way, maybe, as I said, not, we are kind of killing that business coming out of that particular technology as such. But if you're working on a newer molecule, typically from a business perspective, probably you have much time ahead to develop that technology as well. Another thing, Mukesh, I would put it in again from the competition perspective, is that if you're working on an old molecule coming up with a new technology, and if you don't have a patent protection, you would have lots of players lined up to launch the product because they already have that product available with them. Like metformin, as you said, metformin is being sold by, let's say, or 20-25 odd players, and if you come up with a new technology for metformin, and if you don't have a protection, all those 25 players are actually coming to you on the day one, or maybe within a year's time through reverse engineering. That way it would be really difficult to protect the competition. But if you're working on a new molecule, again, coming to gliptins, let's say we are thinking about the gliptins basically, or the allogliptin or the vildagliptin or anagliptin. At that point of time, comparatively, for me, the competition would be lesser. I think this is my perspective to look at it. As I said, Mukesh, as a scientist, you are absolutely bang on target, because scientist always thinks in a way more about the research, or more about the perspective, what kind of data is available. But if you ask someone who actually has to launch that product and get some money out of it, or when I say money, business coming out of it, that point of time, it is always preferred to come up with newer drugs, or newer I would say products being used in your technologies as. So this is my perspective, Mukesh, and hopefully I think to some extent at least you would agree on this. Okay, yeah. Okay, we got this discussion moving ahead. Apurva, but old drugs patents are likely to expire soon. For new drugs, if the API patent is active, then it could be a tough job to use it for platform technology. Thank you so much, Apurva, for this particular question. If your patent is, if your API is patent protected, let me repeat this. If your API is patent protected, still you can work in research, you can work in R&D on that API. No one bars you from working on that API in the research center or in your lab as well. So we have this particular clause under which research exemption, you can generate as much as data for research for that molecule. Only thing barred is commercialization you cannot do. But I'll tell you, Apurva, to answer your question, if you are working on a molecule which is patent protected, let us say we are working on a molecule which is patent protected by a big MNC based in US, and you have come up with a great product out of that, and I would say that's a 5.5 NDDS product, let's say. First of all, you are allowed to work on that. If your product has the potential, and if you have got a proper IP protection for that, it may happen that your product is out licensed to that company. You may not be in a position to launch, but you have the legal rights for that. That means that original or innovator or brand company may not be in a position to actually launch or use that technology as such. Does that clear your doubt, Apurva? Yeah, just put it in the chat box. So we are allowed to work on research. So we have research exemption. If the molecule, yes, thank you. If the molecule is patent protected, still you can work on the R&D part or research, and that's how all these ANDAs are developed by the generic company. Now, this is about section 3D. We also have section 3E, combinations, A plus B, diclofenac plus misoprostol for the first time. India, not patented, but there is a way out. There is a way out for that, and the way out is if that is mere admixture, then only it's not patentable. If you show some synergy, and for those who are into research, they understand the term synergy. Basically, synergistic combinations are patentable in India. Synergy means, so for example, let me put it in a very crisp manner. There is a drug, which let us say actually have certain effect, like 10% effect on that particular skin lesions, let's say. There is another drug which has got 15% effect on that skin lesions for a topical product. Now, if you combine these two, A plus B, that is 10 plus 15, there should be 25% of reduction in those skin lesions basically. But if you club these two, instead of 25, you are getting, let's say 40, 45. So basically 1 plus 2 is not 3, but 1 plus 2 is 5, or जिसे हम हिंदी में एक और एक 11 बोलते हैं, वैसा that is the case. That mere admixture, actually the combinations basically can be patented under the synergy. But you have to show that synergy. Now, where does this synergy come from? This synergy may be through some physical parameters of the composition. It may be through anything basically. So for example, if I try to compress a particular drug and I'm not in a position to compress because of some issues, if I try to compress other drug, that is also facing the same issue. But if I club these two, if I prepare a combination, that product is compressible. In that case also, we can call it as a synergy basically. Now this is section 3E. Next section is section 3I. Typically those who are working on drug repurposing kind of projects or pharmacology projects, method of treatment are not patentable in India as such. This is only difference between what we have in the US, Europe, and Indian perspective as far as novel drug delivery systems are concerned. The combinations, the polymorphs or the derivatives, new forms, and the method of treatment. But then method of treatment per se, using that language, we'll see some examples how it can be patented as well actually, like the so-called second medical uses that we'll see. We are skipping the traditional knowledge part because that is more related to the herbal products as such. Now when we know that all these things are not patentable, let us see what is patentable, how people have tried to get patent granted for inventions. Let me tell you, to be honest, patent claims specifically, claim drafting is something which is I would say more of putting your science in a legal manner, in an artistic way. Let me repeat it. Putting your science in a legal language, in an artistic way. And how is it done? How do the patent agents do? How do the patent attorneys do? We'll see with one wonderful example, but later on. But just before that, we also need to understand that when we know these are the criteria for getting a patent, globally most of the patents are rejected based on obviousness. And inventive step or non-obviousness is something which we need to always focus on when we think of novel drug delivery systems actually, because not only getting rejected but limiting the scope of your invention as well. That's what they are doing, because what happens if your scope is limited, then anyone can very easily prepare a copy of that particular product as such. Now that is important for us, to understand that if our invention is protected, or I would say properly protected, because it's not allowing others to copy that, in that case only we would be in a position to exploit your product commercially as well. Now the important thing or the crucial questions about patenting, not only about the NDDS but for any kind of invention, is pharma invention basically, is that is there patent protection available? First question. Then only you would be actually in a position to recover the cost involved. That's what we are expecting out of it. The first question is there a patent protection available? If yes, how strong is the patent protection? How strong is the patent protection as such? Because if you don't have a strong patent protection, what happens to your product, we'll see in next few slides as such. The third most important question is, can I get patent in India? US and Europe. Why we are saying India? India may not be that big market like US and Europe, but most of the generic companies are in India. If you don't have protection in India, all these companies may actually be in a position to use your invention as such. So that's the reason we have got one particular session which is on preparing a global patenting strategy for NDDS products, novel drug delivery system products. What is patentable in the US, Europe, and India? And this is the slide which we spoke specifically about the Indian perspective for novel drug delivery systems. Now, as I said, why do patents get rejected? And these are the three most crucial things. Let us see how does a patent agent or an attorney puts your invention in a legal way, in an artistic manner. I have got an invention. Now the question for all of you is that you have to put it in the chat box. I'm going to read it for you. You have to put it in the chat box. What is this invention related to? The claim, this is an actual claim. It's an edible product comprising a spherical crusty enclosure defining a hole therein, the hole providing access to the volume, internal to the crusty enclosure. Within that enclosure, there is a hole which provides access to volume. Okay, liquid volume basically. Now a fluid mixture of mint. We got some answer here. Put it in the chat box if you understand what is the technology. A fluid mixture of mint, spice, and water disposed within the volume. Finally, a sauce comprising tamarind sweetener, the sauce disposed within the volume, and a portion of at least one of boiled potato, boiled chickpea, or boiled mung beans. And we have got Dr. Krishna Priya, who mentioned it is a pani puri, or which is also called as a golgappa basically. And this is a wonderful example how a patent agent or an attorney puts your invention in a legal. Okay, Ushasi, I think that is also called as a fuchka in Bengal, and we also call it golgappa typically in the north, or in Maharashtra we call it panipuri, or this Western India basically. Right, Mukesh ji, Ushasi, and Meghna, thank you so much. Yes, indeed, it is a panipuri or a golgappa. Now, a patent agent need to put your invention in an artistic manner. Now, this is providing actually, I would say, legal protection for your invention. And this means actually no one else would be in a position to use some of these contents basically. This is a very hypothetical case, but then your patent agent, or what is important is your agent should understand the technology you are working on. What technology you are working on? Are you, let us say you are working on a technology, let us say which is again coming back to the co-crystallization example or solid dispersion example as such. That point of time, if your agent is in a position to understand that technology, then only he or she would be in actually position to make a justice to that invention, because understanding that technology itself is. So if a mechanical engineer or software engineer comes to me and tells me about his or her invention, I may not be in a position to understand it properly. Then I won't be in a position to actually put it in the proper format as well, so this is very important. And when we think of novel drug delivery systems, many a times what we have seen is the inventions getting killed because of the kind of language that has been used basically in the product. What I have done here, for examples, for the purpose of examples, I have identified some 505(b)(2) products, and let me also take it through these products as well, through the orange book as such, just to understand what these products are. So we have got this product Adelson's XR ODT, which is, I believe, one of those earliest products which are more into XR as well as orally disintegrating tablet, ODT as well as ER. Now, herein the kind of protection that is provided, if you see the US number, the protection that is provided is a composition comprising a mixture of dextro and levoamphetamine, which is complexed with the ion exchange resin particle to form drug resin particles, and said composition comprises 20 to 50% of first plurality of drug resin particles that are uncoated and 50 to 80 that are coated basically. Now, if you look at this invention, what we discussed in the earlier slide, is there a protection available? Yes, there is a protection available. Is it sufficient? Is it strong enough? We'll understand only when we actually go through the product details basically. And is it possible to make a non-infringing? Can we come out of this claim basically to remove one of the limitation and prepare a product? Primarily, it seems no, it has got enough protection actually. When the third question, if you look at it, is it patentable in India? Look at those two words which are actually, I would say, highlighted there, the mixture and complexation. And let me tell you, probably in India, we may not get this patent granted because admixtures under section 3E and complex under section 3D are not patentable in India. So for me, it may be enough protection available only in US, but Indian company, any Indian company, since this doesn't have any, let us say, Indian protection, can very easily copy this particular product. Now, this is one example, and I'll tell you, Adhesin's XRODT is approved as a 505(b)(2) product, a typical example of novel drug delivery system. Next example that we have is Zambrus, and this is basically a protection. This is a sumatriptan subcutaneous product. Let me put it here. A technology which is subcutaneous technology. Now, if you look at this, actually, the protection available is really very less because if you look at this, there are lots of limitations available in the claim basically. But then the way they have got protection in US is a method of treatment. Again, same Indian scenario, this patent, this language is not allowed. Method of treating acute migraine, not allowed in India. If you even method of administration may not be actually patentable in India. But if you look at the claims basically here, you would understand there are lots of limitations. There is a limitation of sodium chloride. Then you also have an auto injector or a osmolality or a pH. But let me tell you, practically speaking, if we realize this as a very broad claim, very narrow claim basically, but still preparing a non-infringing to this is not possible because of the subcutaneous product. When we say subcutaneous product, we need to comply with the regulatory requirements. So there comes the role of a regulation as well. When you are preparing a product, that point of time, when you want to prepare a non-infringing formulation, that point of time, your regulatory should allow it as well. So for example, if I change the osmolality or pH, then in that case, probably I don't have, I am not allowed to do that because of the regulatory agency's requirement as well. Again, this product is approved as a 505(b)(2) product. The kind of protection that has been provided is sufficient enough that there is no generic available for that. This is Zambrus, sumatriptan. The third product I have taken here in is Cernio. Cernio is another 505(b)(2) product approved in US. If you look at Cernio, it is basically a spray topical, and betamethasone, a steroid basically. For that, you have actually got this product approved as a spray product. Now, if you look at topical products, again, you have the requirement of Q1, Q2. Qualitative and quantitatively, your ANDA need to be as per the innovator or the RLD. So that point of time, is this providing me sufficient protection? Yes, it is providing me sufficient protection as far as the development is concerned. So when we are working on these kind of, what I'm trying to tell you is, when I'm working on a topical subcutaneous product, probably the kind of protection I may get is really good to block the competitors as such. There is more market potential or commercialization available for me as such. But let us go back to the oral ones now. Let us think of this product, one of the biggest products. Almost many of these Indian companies are already working on this, Zelzan Zexa, the tofacitinib extended release product as such. If you look at this, again, another product approved as a 505(b)(2). Look at the protection available. You have a limitation of osmogen. It's an osmotic product basically, and your core comprises water insoluble polymer. Tell a formulation scientist and he would be definitely in a position to come up with a non-infringing strategy for this answer. So there is a protection available for OSD, oral solid dosage form, for this particular product, but then it may not be sufficient for you to get the product block from the generic competition. That's the reason Zelzan XR, approved as a 505(b)(2) product or a specialty product, is under para 4 litigation, or the generics could actually file the ANDA for that particular product as well. So what is important is, what is that? Is the protection available? If the answer is yes, you have actually won the first battle. Is the protection sufficient to cover your product? So that others cannot actually replicate that product? That is the second question. And this second question may not be, actually the second criteria may not be satisfied through this particular thing, this particular product. Next product, I'm sorry, this is a suspension product, which is for oral solutions I have taken, and this again is one of those old molecules coming up with new dosage form. I would say suspension for simvastatin, age-old molecules which got expired in, let's say, 2005 to 10K duration. Mein you prepared a aqueous suspension for that. Wonderful project, easy to develop as such, but the kind of protection you got is really very less. Anyone can simply remove any of the excipients and then you can come up with a new product basically, so you have got protection. Yes. Is it sufficient? Answer is no. The technology, now we come up with a complex technology. We have this respiratory domain, which has been, of course, in high demand because of the COVID situation since last 2 years, as far as the pharma industry is concerned. What you would understand, again, this product is approved as a 505(b)(2) or a specialty product. Herein, the kind of protection you have got is really good enough so that no one else would be in a position to. So the more complex the technology, it would be easier actually to prove the non-obviousness as well as to protect the invention as such. But still, we recommend always to go for a oral technology basically, because that's what sells in the market. So there has to be some kind of, I would say, a proper due diligence about three things: market potential, the patent aspect, and the technology that you are using. If these three things are clubbed together, then what you get is a wonderful product which may be marketed, and everyone, I believe me, every other company would be actually looking for these kind of products which are technology sensitive, which are very difficult to develop, or maybe which has got good market potential. And when I see these three things, and I think what we had a discussion about the old molecules versus new molecules, there in the second criteria, in the kind of protection as well as the market potential, in that second criteria, new molecules fit more compared to the old molecules as well. That's the reason we recommend actually to work on the newer, at least those molecules which are, let's say, approved maybe 10 years back, instead of working on something. See, if you have got an option to work on a molecule which is 40 years old and a molecule which is 5 years old, if it is accessible, work on a molecule which is 5 years old actually. And this has been the recommendation to everyone as such in the research. Now I have also got another product which is from the oral domain, which is a combination basically. And for this combination, if you see Bonjesta, which is a combination of doxylamine and pyridoxine, herein approved again as a 505(b)(2) product, but enough protection is not provided because of certain limitations that one or more outer coatings substantially surround. I mean, the language is such that you can actually prepare a kind of a non-infringing product. Means others can actually copy the product without infringing that particular patent. What is important when we think of patenting for these NDDS kind of products is overcoming that inventive step rejection. And it is always recommended to have some comparative data with the prior art or the product which is already available in the market. Of course, we may not need that data which is required for the clinical purpose, but it may be something which is a data. Saravanan, let me take you a question. How to overcome these inventive step rejections, in that comparative data with those products which are available basically, maybe from technology perspective, therein you can actually overcome the inventive step rejection. Advantages over prior art, if you mention any negative data generated, most of the times we have got this habit actually, unfortunately, that when we let's say take 10 batches of a particular product, we just show one batch which is good, but we don't learn from the other 9 batches the negative data. Let me tell you that negative data generated helps me a lot to overcome the inventive step if that data is generated and that data is available. It is really very crucial. If something is working, let's say, and other things are not working, what are those other things and why are they not working? If we include that actually helps us overcome the inventive step. Synergistic data in case of combination, I think we have already discussed it. Now coming back to Sarvanan, your question, why there is no sufficient protection available for these products. If you look at this product, let me say this product, the protection that is available is, for example, this is your brand, this is your product, and I am a formulation scientist working with a generic company. Flow lipid simvastatin oral solution or suspension I have to prepare. What I would do is I'll just remove cross carmelose or carmelose sodium or methyl hydroxybenzoate and come up with the same product. That way I would be out of the scope of this claim. This is what we call as a non-infringement basically, Sarvan. So the kind of protection that is given to you should be such that, I'll tell you a case. Now in this case, there is a very less possibility to prepare a non-infringing product as a formulation scientist. Now, if there is a chance of preparing a non-infringing product, then in that case, we say that the protection is not sufficient. It may be because of few reasons, like there is a lot of prior art available. And this is where you have, if you have old molecules, a lot of prior arts are available. If you have second reason is that it's improperly drafted. I have seen couple of examples actually, wonderful invention, and the patent agent killing that technology or killing that invention as such, because that patent agent could not, or the attorney could not understand, I would say, the significance of that technology. So it is very essential that whomever you are working with should understand your technology first. And if they understand your technology first, now when I understand this technology of Golgappa, then only I would be put in a position to put it in the proper format, right? So these are some of the reasons, Sarvanan, why there is no sufficient protection available for these products as such. And what we have got as a take-home lesson from today is that for a successful NDDS development, it is essential to consider 3 things. First is the technology, product development. Can we do that? Second thing, the IP protection. And the third is the market potential coming from that. Next, complex products provide better opportunities for overcoming the inventive step objection, because that is easier for them for the complex product. But development point of view, you may face a lot of challenges as such. Getting a patent is not always sufficient. It is essential to know what kind of protection is provided for the product. What is that protection that is provided? Is it really sufficient to protect it from generics or not? And finally, having that global patenting strategy upfront is actually essential for the proper protection of your product. To summarize, what we have seen today is what is the basic understanding of those NDDS or 55B2 products or specialty product, what we call, what are those requirements for patentability, and how we should approach basically when we think of patentability of these particular products as such. So we are done with the first session, fortunately bang on time. What I would request you to, if you have any specific questions, please put it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask those questions as such. Okay. Now we have got a question from Dr. Om Prakash Bhusnore. What kind of opportunity we can gain in connection to newly synthesized molecule at a research lab? To be honest, sir, when we are thinking of newly synthesized molecules at research lab, we are thinking, ideally thinking about the NC or the 505 B1 route rather than the 505 B2 route as such. As I said, these are the molecules which are actually approved, approved as a, I would say, the